Hey awesome people, here's an unusual one. Have you ever felt as if you're dying or that you're about to die, or have perhaps had thoughts of suicide but you don't consider yourself to be a suicidal person? In other words, it's not really something that happens to you often. What explains that and why is that happening? Because, for these things to happen, it obviously is quite distressing because on a day-to-day basis we're alive, but also we're of course used to wanting to be alive and not having these thoughts come up. So what explains this? Well, it's quite interesting. In short, a part of you is dying and is making its way for transformation. Jordan Peterson gives a good analogy in that periodically forest fires are actually quite good for a forest in that the fire clears up very easily a lot of the dead wood in the forest that would otherwise get in the way of new trees sprouting, say, or things like nuts and fruits falling onto the ground and kind of more deeply or more easily fertilizing the soil of that forest, which in turn would feed nutrients back into the trees. So it's quite like this. The reason these thoughts and feelings happen is because a part of you is making way for an expansion of yourself. And this is also reflected actually when you go to the gym. If you're a bodybuilder, what is actually happening when you're doing weights and whatnot is that you're actually breaking apart your muscles in order for them to come back together in a stronger and larger form. So there is an element of breakage, and then things come back together and a new whole is created out of the process. Now, this is only an idea, but when someone has reached a point where you get to the extreme of the scale and they're thinking about suicide a lot, in other words, they're a suicidal person, the reason for that could be that part of them that needs to change is not being allowed to change. And of course, if you're a suicidal person, there's a lot of suffering going on in your life, and that person is going to be very likely to be stuck in a cycle. If things were changing in their life and they were changing for the better, in other words, the various sources of their problems were coming to a conclusion and a resolution, and they felt something was progressing, then it would be quite natural to assume that they would cease to have these feelings and these thoughts, and that will be true in almost all cases. And so what you can take then as a lesson from these feelings and these thoughts that you might be having is to let yourself find that part of you that is dying. What needs to change? What is transforming? Quite often you might not even have to do anything except just to accept how you're feeling and that things are changing. There's a good chance that a couple of aspects in your life are going quite difficult for you at the moment, and so you can just recognize that and realize that this is the breakage before the reassemblage, which then leads to transformation from these newly intertwined parts, and you'll be stronger from the process. Death is always kind of a doorway, and when you step into that, on the other side is transformation. So, in short, I hope that this can put any fears at ease for you, any concerns. I hope that this is understandable, and I hope that this encourages you to not only let that process be and let yourself feel, as per my last video, but also to take stock of what is changing, and you could say what needs to change, and to allow yourself to facilitate that change and to let that happen. Okay, have a great day, guys. Take care.